Yesterday afternoon, official word came from the Star Wars Twitter page and website that a second episode of The Gallery, Season 2, The Making of the Mandalorian, and Behind the Scenes, with the resurrection of Luke Skywalker into Star Wars, was announced. But is there more to the story than just the story itself? I think so. Let's talk about it. Online. So yesterday afternoon on Twitter, we had a drop from the Star Wars official account. Go behind the scenes of the best-kept secret of The Mandalorian Season 2, a special episode of the Disney Gallery, The Mandalorian, making of the Season 2 finale. Start streaming on August 25th on Disney+. So, great news. If we all remember from the first season of The Gallery, we had about 7 or 8 episodes, each featuring different segments of the production of that show, in a format that was very different from what we saw after Season 2 of The Mandalorian, which was just a single episode. In Season 1, all the directors, the producers, the behind-the-sets people, we had Filoni and Favreau, all sitting around a round table discussing things, and of course, Kathleen Kennedy was sitting there with them. And we had that famous scene in there at one point with Kathy Kennedy kind of interrupting Jon Favreau and then Favreau interrupting back, saying that we're just going to go around the table, Kathy, and we'll get to you, or whatever it was. Now, I always found that scene very interesting and telling because I had to ask myself, why on earth would they leave that clip in there? I mean, it seems a little insulting to Kathy. They could have made a second take. They could have simply cut that part out, gone to the round table instead. But no, that cut was deliberately left in there. And that was kind of the first inkling I had that the quote-unquote civil war at Lucasfilm was probably a real thing. Seems like that Jon got away with that because at the end of the day, while Kathy Kennedy may be technically Jon Favreau's boss because she's the head of Lucasfilm, she's really not the head of Lucasfilm. Bob Chapek and Bob Iger are, or at least Bob Iger at the time of Season 1 and now Chapek here in Season 2. So when we got Season 2 of The Gallery, not only was it just one episode, but the difference in how it was put together was striking. There was no roundtable discussion. It was simply behind-the-scenes footage and on-the-set interviews with guys like Filoni and Favreau and some of the other directors involved. And no Kathy Kennedy. No Kathy Kennedy at all in that episode, which, again, was another apparent message in and of itself. So that being said, I have to wonder if Kathy is going to be in this new episode that is coming out a whopping 7, almost 8 months later. And I doubt she will be. Again, lending more credence to the fact that, yes, there has been something going on behind the scenes for the soul of Star Wars. And when you look at it, it's not just an ideological war, it's also a war about money. The Mandalorian has been a driving force for Disney+. In fact, it launched Disney+. Disney Plus currently stands at somewhere around, we believe, according to Disney numbers and some other things that we can look at in various research articles, somewhere between 90 and 100 million subscribers at this point. Now, they have had some growth internationally, but of course, that international growth recently largely coming from India, where those subscribers are paying pennies on the dollar compared to what U.S. subscribers are paying for the same service. That being said, we look at what happened at the end of Mando Season 2, and we look at what drove the YouTube cacophony of just joy, just pure joy at the return of Luke Skywalker. And we have to look at it in terms of a business and financial sense. So if The Mandalorian is just responsible for driving and acquiring 10 million subs, which, by the way, that kind of growth has not really happened with the Marvel Cinematic Universe shows that have been coming out this year, starting with WandaVision and then Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and then more recently Loki. Yeah, they're getting some good watches, they're getting some decent views, but has subscriber growth really picked up since those shows have come on? The answer apparently is no, according to the financial reports from Disney. It has relatively staggered or flatlined, or the growth curve has really slowed tremendously. So we can go back and we can attribute quite a bit of subscriber growth over time to The Mandalorian. So let's just say 10 million subscribers are on Disney Plus because they were drawn in by The Mandalorian. Well, that would be a total of almost $700 million per year in subscription fees from those subscribers if they all paid annually. If they're paying month to month, it'd be closer to $840 million. You look at it over the course of 2 years, you're talking north of $1.5, $1.6 billion. If the subscribers attributed to The Mandalorian bringing in those subs is 15 or 20 million of that 100 million, again, not a radically high number considering the growth that we saw on Disney Plus while The Mandalorian's Season 1 and Season 2 was going on. I think it's a fair assumption. Again, that pulled in a lot of subs. The bottom line is that Mandalorian makes money for Disney. The Mandalorian and its universe is making money for Lucasfilm, not only on TV and Disney Plus, but also in merchandising. That's been the big thing. The sequel trilogy couldn't pull that off. So the Kennedy version of Star Wars did not make Disney the returns they wanted in the movies because of production cost overruns and, frankly, relatively poor box office performance compared to what the movies were expected to make back when Disney made the purchase of Lucasfilm, as compared to what kind of money they're raking in from merchandising and programming on Disney Plus from the Favreau, Filoni, Mandalorian universe. So let's talk a little bit more about that. So if we go into the Star Wars website, we get a little bit more detailed description of this new episode of The Gallery that's coming out. Special episode of Disney Gallery, The Mandalorian explores Luke Skywalker's return in the Season 2 finale, premiering August 25th exclusively on Disney+. In last year's Season 2 finale of The Mandalorian, the appearance of a young Luke Skywalker was one of the biggest reveals and best-kept secrets of the acclaimed show thus far. Reaction to the episode was emotionally charged for many, deeply resonating with generations of fans who were elated to see the Jedi Master in his post-Star Wars Return of the Jedi Prime. The story of the cutting-edge technology used to bring Luke back is the subject of a special, extra episode of Disney Gallery Star Wars The Mandalorian, debuting August 25th on Disney+. The making of the Season 2 finale is a behind-the-scenes look at the making of the celebrated chapter of The Mandalorian with a focus on the technology used for recreating Luke Skywalker. It delves into a collaborative process, including working with Mark Hamill, to create an authentic and fitting recreation, and explores the immense pressure and responsibility the filmmakers had in bringing back one of the most important characters in history. Let's read that last line one more time, shall we? It delves into the collaborative process, including working with Mark Hamill to create an authentic and fitting reaction, and explores the immense pressure and responsibility the filmmakers had in bringing back one of the most important characters in film history. Now, folks, to me, that is some very different language than we have heard used about Luke Skywalker from, let's call it, the Kennedy faction at Lucasfilm. And again, as I have before, I'm going to state that there's been a change in the social media and the media on the website of Star Wars these last several months. The focus has turned away from most of Kennedy's projects, the sequel trilogies, the High Republic, all that kind of stuff, and there's been much more focus shift to the Mandalorian universe or to the Favreau and Filoni-verse, including some of the animated series that Filoni is responsible for, obviously. Now, remember when the Luke Skywalker thing was going on and we saw pictures of Lucasfilm employees, particularly those in the story group on the Kennedy side of things, standing in front of computer monitors with big red X's over Luke Skywalker in the background, clearly visible, and other such comments, that we got from guys like Pablo Hidalgo and things like this. And then all of a sudden, a few months later, that kind of quieted down, did it not? Yeah, I wonder why. Because at the end of the day, Disney realizes that Luke Skywalker and Star Wars makes money and Kennedy stuff doesn't. So, yes, there has been a civil war. There's been a civil war of ideology of the two sides, but one side is clearly winning, especially when that one side can kind of go around Kennedy, because Kennedy's really not the boss of Star Wars. She's really not the boss of Lucasfilm. Bob Iger is. Bob Chapek is. So, and of course, we heard the stories about Luke Skywalker's return being kept a secret for so long, even perhaps from Kennedy and the story groups themselves. The story group definitely, but I don't think Kennedy knew anything about it either. So, again, how does this play into this episode of The Gallery? Well, again, if we look at it pragmatically, why is this coming out now? Why did it take 8 months to get this episode out? Now, clearly, all the stuff that they put in these gallery episodes is largely behind-the-scenes footage. So all of this has been in the can for probably, at this point, a year or more. Did it take 8 months to get Mark Hamill back in for an interview? Because supposedly he's doing an interview in this one. I doubt it. I doubt it. Or perhaps was this episode delayed so obviously because certain something had to be settled in the background, a certain something that we probably don't know yet. And that certain something is what I've been discussing here since just shortly after the Gina Carano situation, and even before it. No, Kathleen Kennedy is never going to get fired, because you can't really do that to somebody like Kathy, not with the power she has in Hollywood. You can, however, decline to renew her contract, which is up at the end of October. So maybe something in the background has been done now. If we do listen to other rumors and things like that we've had from our friends like Doomcock, and again, you take him with a grain of salt, as he says. He's an entertainer, and he's getting information that he's passing along to you. You can choose whether or not that you find it to be valid. Again, he's just a conduit of information. Me personally, I happen to believe quite a bit of it, because business-wise, again, it makes a lot of sense. And when you have one side that's making money for Lucasfilm and Star Wars, and the other side, frankly, isn't, it's pretty obvious which one they're going to go with at the end of the day. So again, I think this whole issue with the gallery season, or episode 2 of season 2 coming out now, is probably another telltale sign, because otherwise I would want somebody to explain to me why we didn't get this episode 6 months ago, 7 months ago, or at least not long after the first episode came out. I think they had to let the dust settle, and I think, honestly, Favreau wanted to be able to produce this episode. He wanted to have Hamill back in there, and he wanted to be able to cut this behind-the-scenes tribute to that episode and to the real, legitimate Luke Skywalker that we finally got from Disney, unencumbered by other factions inside Lucasfilm. Anyway, that's just my take. Until next time, you guys, take care.